For Tuesday, the 31st of May, I'm Randy Kure. This is What's Up the Sports podcast, broadcasting on Facebook Live, as well as Apple's Colorcast app. If you are downloading today's episode via your favorite podcatcher, thank you so much for the download. We are going to be discussing basketball on several levels. The NBA Finals is set for Thursday. Not really going to focus solely on the finals, but any basketball talk is better than no basketball talk at all. Joining me today for the roundtable, like he does on most occasions, Tony Antoniou is here. Tony, how are you? Tony is on mute.
That's a good start. Good, Randy. How are you doing?
Doing great. And today we are joined with a very special guest. He has a wide range of broadcasting experience in general news and especially in sports as a reporter, update anchor, as well as a host. These days, he's doing some great things in the corporate communications world. His name is Zack Cooper, and he joins us tonight. Zack, it's an absolute thrill after all these years. How are you?
I'm well, man, and it's obviously nice to be here. Nothing sounds sexier than corporate communications.
Isn't that something? Well, yeah, I thought it was something. I thought it was something that would go well with you.
It's funny. Normally I say, I work in video games, and that's kind of like the hook, and that'll do the thing. And then, corporate communications, I think, is like it's the less sexy side of it. But it's great. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's been like 15 years, I think, since you and I worked together, and Tony as well at Rogers Radio in Toronto. And yeah, I mean, of course, in 2005, when we were working together, there was no Facebook and there was no YouTube. But of course, back then we knew that you were going to appear on my podcast, right?
It's true. Yeah, I think you wrote it on a sticky, slapped it on my back. And it took me a while. It took me I think it was about 15 years till I saw it. And then I just wrote you back. I was like, what is this, man? They're like, oh, it's time. It's that time.
And that's right. Here we are. Here we are today. And, talking about today. And you know what? We definitely will be talking about basketball soon. But, Zack, I'd be remiss if the three of us didn't have a chat about news, whether it be in a general sense or in sports. I mean, the three of us, as well, Dan Leggieri, who was supposed to be joining us, he may join us as the show progresses here. But the three of us got into news, I think, for a reason. And, we were hoping to, whether it be in sports, I, for one, wasn't overly picky if it was a news perspective. I was really enamored with the whole dynamic of informing the media, informing the world, but that was a long time ago. And here we are today with so many different platforms. This platform not being around, as I mentioned. To start with, from those days to today, what do you think the state is of news, whether it is of a general sense or in sports?
I think it's a wide state. It's a big state. It is robust, man. It's a crazy world. I think, you allude to a time before this one when, Twitter, I think when I was leaving the Fan, Twitter was maybe a couple of years old. And now it dominates as far as spreading information. I'm curious where both of you guys get your information from, how the news cycle enters your world, because, it's interesting. Some of it has remained the same for me. And then at the same time, so much relies on an algorithm and me getting the news that the internet wants me to see based on the things that I've been looking at and clicking on. And it's just, it's wild, man. And I don't know, how does news enter your worlds?
Tony?
Mine is 100% Twitter. Just every day, just flipping every minute of the day. Yeah, we've all changed. I used to be a newspaper reader. I used to be just wake up in the morning, grab a coffee, read the paper, blah, blah, blah. But I need my information fast, quick. And you're right. It's just, and life is busy for us too, when you have a family, when you're working. So just grab your phone and mainly Twitter for me now. I do a lot of podcasts too, but Twitter for sure.
For me, honestly, Zach, I really haven't changed much with regards to social media. There, I guess the occasional Facebook post, but I'm not really heavy on the CP20, City Pulse 24, which is the 24-hour news station in Toronto, CTV Newsnet and CTV. I know that Twitter obviously is so instant, but really haven't got to Twitter really at all.
Are you still an AM radio guy? Are you getting your updates?
Every 15 minutes,
man.
traffic on the ones. You know what? No, in terms of traffic, I rely on Google, but with I guess let's put it this way. One of the top sportscasters up until recently was let go from the radio station that you used to work at, and he has a podcast, and I listen to his podcast when I'm in the car, as well as
are we not calling out names? I don't know.
We can. I mean, I don't think I'm under any pressure not to say any names, but Bob McCowan, who is essentially one of the top sportscasters in this country, he was let go, give or take, around 2019, I think, and
what is time?
Yeah. And it remains to be seen if that was the right decision for Rogers Radio, but he is doing a podcast, and I still think he has a lot of value. There is one show, the Drive Time Show with Ben Ennis and Stephen Brunt. Stephen Brunt is one of my favorite sportscasters. Ben, actually, he started when I was at 680, and I don't think you mind me saying that I even met him and at a party that you hosted at your place. I do remember that, if you don't mind me saying that. But
tell me more about this party, Randy.
Well, hey, I mean, no, Ben is doing some really great work. But with regards to me personally, I'm more still of the traditional sense, but I think I'm a rare breed these days.
It's interesting, man. Like, I don't, I was telling you guys before we went on, like, I don't have cable. I'm not doing the TV thing. I do listen to, the station formerly known as 680 in the morning while I'm preparing breakfast for myself and helping my wife get the kids ready for school and whatnot. In fact, I got really upset when she put the blender on during the headlines.
Oh, is that right?
That top of the hour, I was like, babe, couldn't you have done this during traffic and weather? I don't need that stuff. I can get it on my. Anyways, but I just find it's such a complex space these days. I think especially, how much we see misinformation and disinformation, all like the realities of what's going on in the world and how much of it can be controlled. Again, not to get like too deep on this stuff, but just like when you rely on something like Twitter and the prevalence of bots and how much they can sort of tune the algorithms to, feed you what they want you to see. Like, I just think it's a dark time. And so I think, to your point, Randy, you've got your kind of trusted sources that you can kind of stick to. I think that's cool. For me, it is, quick snippets on the radio. And then while I'm having breakfast, I'll break out the iPad and I'll read my news feeder. And it works okay.
Sorry, I think part of the problem is trying to figure out what trusted source means anymore too, right? I mean, who can you trust anymore? Now, I'm flipping through Twitter. I'm following Chris Johnson or Pierre LeBrun to get my hockey information. Pretty sure they're not bots, but
sports news is definitely a bit different.
Sports news is different. And, political, I try and follow CNN, Fox. I try and follow both sides just to get both, because it's fun. It's like following politics now is like following wrestling. It's just a lot of fun. Just this crazy entertainment. But the question these days is, who is the trusted source, right? I don't know. And that's another reason why it's crazy. So much division now. And journalism is not journalism anymore because nobody's seeking the truth. Very few of them left in the world who's seeking the truth, the actual truth, and will put the actual time in to give you the truth, not based on any political priors, not based on any cultural beliefs, right? So when you say trusted source, it's you know, that's a confusing term to me these days too.
I find it kind of fascinating, Tony, that you can take the kind of joy or the entertainment aspect out of the news, and for me, largely infuriating, and that's part of the
Oh
reason why
yeah,
I spend less time on Twitter, because it just seems like it's a platform filled with vitriol and just people being the worst versions of themselves,
yeah,
posturing, or just again spreading hateful messages. And I find
for
myself
sure.
going further and further into this kind of like, vacuum of what I should be seeing. And I don't know if that's the ideal, but I'm definitely not. I can't deal with the Fox News stuff. It's too much. It
Right.
hurts.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
and guys, I do want to say, courtesy of Apple's Colorcast app, I want to thank Zack for the comment that he just posted. And Zack is from Ohio. I've got to know him through Colorcast, and he wrote, "People want to be first, not right. Have the sound bites instead of the information." And it's something that I completely agree. And I think the three of us can attest to the fact that there was a real desire and need and importance to be correct, to check the sources, to not so much sway in terms of opinion. And was that because of social media? Because and Zack, you could probably comment a lot better than the two of us, that you were in radio with YouTube, with Twitter. Did you see that evolution come where it wasn't so much fact, but it was just so much to get a charge out of the listener?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think, I think especially when it came to hosting talk shows, there was definitely an importance put on just like having an opinion and like backing that opinion no matter what. And it was to the point where I really felt, often quite uncomfortable, especially when I was, put in situations to talk about things that I was less informed about, and subsequently less opinionated about. You're dealing with a medium, I think, in talk radio, let alone sports radio, when everyone listening thinks that they should be in that spot. They know more, they know better, right? Like it's just this kind of like vicious cycle of anxiety, and you've got management that's kind of just pushing you got to keep going hard no matter what, just keep going hard. And it's interesting because I remember, especially when I'd be on the sports desk, it was probably around like 2010, the earlier days of Twitter. And I realized, we would have like the news wire services to feed us our news, what's going on in the sports world, in the news world, whatever it may be. And then you've got, your kind of your TSNs and your Sportsnet websites, and you're hitting refresh every time you're done your update. I remember, it was a very quick pivot when Twitter became a big source as well. And you're refreshing that again, like, Tony's talking about some of the people that he was following, same deal, like all the reporters on the beat for all the different sports, you're following them, you're seeing who's going to get that tweet out because you're looking for that information to then include in your next update. And they're fast and furious, and you want to get the latest information. And so, I can definitely see, again, I'm long since retired from the radio game, from the, that side of the media. So I can't speak to how much of a role it plays, but, you're constantly, in that kind of hawk mentality, hunting for the newest information on the other side as well from the reporter, right? You want that first news blast to have your name attached to it. So, I'm not going to assume that that's every journalist out there. I think there are still a lot of people that have a lot of integrity, and they want to make sure that they get something right, and they go through the mindfulness of validating, whatever news piece that they've got that they want to share. But I think that, there are probably many more who are just as eager to throw something out there for the sake of stirring the pot, getting the conversation going. I mean, we see it all the time, especially when it comes to sports rumors, right? Whatever the angle may be, put it out there and see what happens. And it's a dangerous game.
It also feels like they're there are more. There are a lot of them. There are experts everywhere. Whatever blog site you can come up with, or if you have like a few thousand YouTube followers, you might be able to get a pass at the NBA final or something like that, right? It's just those chosen few sources that we knew growing up, right? Whether you followed hockey or basketball, you knew who they were, and that's who you went to.
Yeah.
But now it seems like it's just exploded, and I guess it's because of Twitter, because of YouTube, TikTok. You can open up a TikTok account and you're a basketball expert, right? So
yeah, but I think there's some value in that too, right? Like, same sort of deal when we talk about, Twitter gaining its popularity. Bloggers were often the people that I would often book to come on my shows, especially when it came to basketball, where coverage wasn't as robust on the local scene, on the pre-pro scene, when we're talking about like high school talent, Canadians in college, down in the States and whatnot. Like, you wouldn't have normal traditional coverage in a Toronto Star or whatever. And so you'd have these, super hardcore fans that were more knowledgeable than anyone else. And they're the ones that have, the interesting things to talk about that's going to be different from everyone else. And, it's interesting because that is a great in for a lot of people. But to your point, right, like everyone's got a platform now. So how do you distinguish the real from the, I don't know if fake is
sure
real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, to jump in, I distinctly remember seeing on social media of a guy sharing a social media post of the Raptors considering to play the season that they eventually played in Tampa. The rumor was that they were considering Louisville, Kentucky, but didn't after the Breonna Taylor killing. That social media outlet came from me. So I am now, obviously I am trying to, if I do repost a tweet that I do like to think that it is coming from a factual source, but if somebody is just so willing to post on their social media pages of a rumor from an uncredited source, let's call it what it is, this is an uncredited platform, then how much of unfactual news is being out there and is being believed by the millions upon billions, right?
Yeah.
So sorry, you were going to say something, John?
No, I was going to say that there are stories out there where you have guys with like 5 followers who will file a complaint about a certain media company to the sponsors, and that sponsor will stop sponsoring with this media company. I mean, that's how Twitter works now too. There's been a couple of occasions where you've had a guy with 5 or 6 followers just throw out there that such and such should not be sponsoring on this and this because of their beliefs and this and that. And sure enough, that sponsor backs out of the media company. So that impact is real. It's weird to me, but it's real.
I think it's safe to say that the three of us can remember a time where we may recognize what is not factual news when we were at the grocery store and seeing the National Enquirer like Cher giving birth to an alien, or
that actually happened though.
Excuse me.
Other than that one, the other thing.
Right. Yeah. I was I thought I was thinking of somebody else. I think it was Brooke Shields maybe, but now like you guys were saying before, what is your trusted news source? And I don't know if you guys want to think social media is evolved and it's matured. I think that there's a long way to go before that actually takes place. But, in your opinions, do you think, I guess the first question is, were we naive to think that news was factual 20 years ago when we were a part of the industry? Number one. Number two, and if you guys do believe that, because I, for one, do you think it's going to get back to that place?
Who you got first?
whoever wants to jump in.
Man, I don't even know where to go with that. I think I think that's a really tough question. I will probably say that I was naive enough to believe that most of it was, you know, uh, fact checked, validated, verified. Otherwise, I would not feel comfortable being a part of spreading that messaging. Um, if it turns out that I don't know. I know for myself, I came into the news world literally 1 month before 9/11. And that's when I think especially the 24-hour news coverage became, incredibly necessary, right? There was the hunger for information that was, very difficult to satisfy. And we would just be glued to CNN and, following everything, following all the channels. We would, record all the newscasts and, take stock of who was saying what and whatnot, and then you hand it over to the editor, and the editor chooses kind of what is worth tracking down. And I think there is a measure of, especially when you're talking about like real world events, that yes, some of the kind of truths may be sacrificed for the purposes of expediency, getting the messaging out quickly. But I'm not going to believe that it was with malice, right? It wasn't with malicious intent. It wasn't to spread misinformation. Whereas now I think there's obviously a lot more of that, a lot more disinformation coming from various sources to try and create particular narratives, especially when there is global conflicts. But I don't know. I would still like to believe that the majority of news outlets will do their due diligence and ensure that accuracy is respected.
I think. Sorry, Tony.
sorry.
Please.
No, I think it'll be very tough to get back to where it once was. Very, very tough. It's just the division in our culture and our society right now is like I've never seen before in my 46 years on Earth. So it's basically
it's the news as entertainment piece, like the.
Sorry, do I say that again?
Do you think that's because like news has become entertainment in that sense?
I don't know if it's entertainment or more it's just who stands on what side of the political aisle, and there's never going to be an in-between, right? If we come to a time where we can get right-wing people on CNN as regulars in order for that conversation to happen between the two sides, and the same thing with Fox, if you can get left-wing people on Fox and have them hash things out, but there seems to be so much division and so much invested in protecting their political priors, their narratives, right? Like you see it. And I never
sensationalized, yeah.
And let me tell you something. I was never into this shit until COVID. And all of a sudden,
really?
there was no sports. So I had no other choice. I was just following politics and culture and wondering what the hell was going on with COVID and have, we've had our battles, Randy, you and I on the whole COVID subject, and
certainly
just trying to, make sense of it all. And that's when I was exposed to this more than ever, because before that, I never really paid attention to it. So like the last 2-3 years have really, really, it's captured my attention. And it's fascinating to me where we've gotten. And it's a bit of a shame because I think we all like this industry and journalism is about the truth, like I've said before. And I don't know if we have a lot of honest people left in the industry.
Well, no, I completely agree with that. And there was one comment on Bob McCowan's Roundtable, coincidentally enough. And if you know the name Eric Thomas, he is a anchor.
Raceline Radio?
No. No, the anchor for Sportsnet.
The other okay.
Yeah, so the other Eric Thomas, yeah, because
the other Eric Thomas, yes,
yeah, the radio Raceline guy, yeah, his name is Eric Thomas. But he was born in Atlanta, went to Mizzou for university, and obviously moved here to Canada. And he said something that really stuck with me as an American, seeing American media and the roundtables, the discussion panels, like Tony said, CNN, Fox. Thomas said something that will always stick to me, and that people in his country have forgotten how to disagree. And you see the times that I do see somebody crossing over the aisle, quote unquote, to go to Fox News and the other way for CNN, that it usually ends in an argument where nothing gets solved. And, between COVID and other sports issues of a social sense, Tony and I have had some really great discussions, and we've had differing opinions, and we're not going at each other to try and convince each other one way or the other. It's just, grown adults having a conversation, and that is the bottom line. And I think the executive producers and the owners of these these television stations don't see a value in that, especially a monetary one.
Well, I was going to say, and that's what I'm kind of referring to as like news as entertainment, news being sensationalized, right? Because those disagreements which reach the eyes of tens of millions of people, especially when we're talking about those big American networks, right? They're seeing that kind of conduct, and it becomes normalized. That's the way conversations go, because this is what I'm seeing in front of me on my television. I think that's, I don't know. I agree with what you're saying. I think I think the reason is because it is entertaining. It is fascinating. Just like Tony was talking about, it being like watching wrestling, right? It's the same thing. You're watching combatants go at it, and they're not trying to find a resolution. They're just trying to speak over one another and make their point heard more, better, stronger, because they're right. There's no concession. There's no agreement at the end of the day. It's like they're just going to go until the segment is done or until someone's cut off, and you move on to the next bit. It's brutal.
Yeah. And is it going to change to what it once was in a more simpler time? And I do actually mean that. It seems that as difficult as it was to be in my early 20s, for example, it seems to be a hell of a lot harder to be same age today. So yeah. So hey guys, why don't we talk a little basketball?
Yes, I'm feeling very dystopian. I'm just like
So hey, we're here to talk hoops, and the NBA Finals is set. The Golden State Warriors have made the championship series for the 6th time in 8 years, and I'm just really fascinated with this Warriors team, guys. I mean, this was a team that really didn't accomplish a heck of a lot. I could remember, I'm sure the two of you can remember as well, an incredible dunk that Baron Davis had over Andrei Kirilenko, I believe it was, all those years ago. And that was really the only interesting thing that came out of Oakland. And then to the chagrin of Knicks fans, they drafted Stephen Curry when Knicks fans were drafting immediately after. That being said, Steph Curry has just been absolutely running it. We'll get to him in a minute, but Tony,
he's lost over the first few years when he was just unable to play at all due to injury after injury, and the Warriors were still not what they thought he would be, and people were questioning Steph and his ability, and then obviously he's healthy and he just changes the game.
Well, how can you not question Stephen Curry? I mean, where is Davidson College? Who was Klay Thompson during the NCAA, let alone Draymond Green? No, they didn't have a lot of fanfare out of college, and I can't recall where Klay went to school. I know that Green went to Michigan State, but or was it even Michigan? No, it was Michigan State. Yeah, sorry. But I mean, that's exactly my point. And now he's Steph Curry is the greatest three-point shooter in league history. To talk about the Warriors and this legacy that Steph created, first things first, the conversation of the Warriors being a dynasty is, that term dynasty just means so much. And, as recent as like a month or two ago, I was of the opinion that a dynasty is multiple championships in a consecutive stretch. That you're talking about the Canadians from way back in the day, to the New York Islanders winning 4 in a row. You could even put in the New York Yankees for winning 3 World Series before the turn of the century. Tony, for the Golden State Warriors to make 6 finals in 8 seasons, they obviously won 3 of them. Is that a dynasty to you?
Yes, I've moved my needle for dynasties now when you take in salary caps and the way players move around now. So I would call them a pretty solid run and dynasty of a team. By the way, the Golden State Warriors guys are now 4th as in terms of most valuable franchise, according to Forbes. They passed the Los Angeles Lakers.
So
they're
sorry,
the fourth most valuable franchise in sports.
In sports, okay. I was wondering if it was for the league,
not in the NBA. In sports, like Real Madrid's on the list, Barcelona's on the list, Liverpool. So that's
and then it's insane. The Warriors are over the New York Yankees.
It's Cowboys, Yankees, Knicks, and then Warriors. So amazingly, the New York Knicks are still
the most valuable. I'm curious where the Lakers are.
The Lakers are right below the Warriors.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
By $1 million. Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing that.
Sorry, this is North American sports franchises.
No. I just told you that Barcelona, Madrid, they're on the list as well. Liverpool.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so they're below. Okay, wow. Okay.
That's pretty wild. My goodness.
Crazy, eh?
Yeah.
You wonder if that's sustainable, though. I mean, like Steph Curry's not going to play forever.
No. But I mean, I guess they have the new arena. Everything is expensive now. TV deals are incredible. It obviously good things come to an end. But yes, to answer your question, sorry, Randy, I would call them a dynasty. I would.
Zach, what are your thoughts?
I would not call them an active dynasty. I think they're kind of dynasty period. Now, obviously, if they go on another stretch here, sure. But I think you've still got like, what was it? I guess I don't know, a 2-year gap between finals appearances is.
Mm-hmm.
I'd consider it like a small stretch, but the period of time, ending with the Raptors title, I think was the end of that dynasty.
The first dynasty. That's fair enough.
And I think this is kind of like a bit of an ellipsis or a dotted line to potentially, if they were to go back to the final, whatever happens this time. I do think winning a title is imperative to being part of a dynasty, to having a dynasty. And that stretch of, what was it, 3 and 4, and then the finals appearances of I guess it would have been 4 and 5.
Yeah,
that's absolutely a dynasty. Yeah.
So, and Steph Curry was hurt. Klay Thompson he was out for 2 seasons. Of course, he what was it, 2 calendar years after Game 6 of the NBA Finals with the Raptors. Excuse me.
It's my bad.
But you have to wonder if, and you mentioned, and it's an interesting take, Zach, because there was 2 years where they did not make the finals. Of course, everything in the world was turned upside down. But is that a continuation because of the players that they still have on the team? Obviously, one key piece is not there, and that was Kevin Durant. But is this the second leg of this dynasty? However many legs there are.
I think it depends on what happens. Well, what happens this year if they manage to beat the Celtics, which I don't think they will do. If they're back in it again, then sure, we can call this a second leg. But I still think, regardless of the circumstance and regardless of the, I don't know if I want to outright dismiss it actually as a regardless, because, admittedly, when you were talking about the key players, right, the Klay, the Steph, the Draymond, right, like they're still there. Admittedly, I kind of chalk up the concept of a dynasty to the franchise more so than the parts that contribute to the success of that franchise.
Okay.
But I don't know. Maybe I have to reconsider that.
Yeah. So, Tony?
Yeah, I was just thinking this is a rare one because of the injuries you mentioned, Randy. I think it's just that they missed some key players for a long period of time, which enabled them to kind of regroup, refresh, make the Wiggins trade, draft the what's his name? Poole?
Jordan Poole, but they also drafted James Wiseman. But
Wiseman. So they kind of retooled there. But I think those injuries is what was the cause of the hiccup.
Well, I think Kevin Durant would say the same, right? Still, yeah. Anyways, we don't need to get into.
But I mean that is you just stumbled on my next point, Zach, because that first championship that the Warriors won, it was an inexperienced team, but they came across a Cavs team that didn't have a healthy Kyrie Irving or Kevin Love. The season that they won 73 games was without Kevin Durant, but they didn't win the championship. And then they win 2 in a row with Kevin Durant. So, of course, we will never know the answer to if the Warriors win the championship without KD. But with that core there, I mean, they're definitely going to Springfield when their careers are over in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So, I guess in the end, and, as Tony mentioned, the value of this franchise, like, is that sustainable? I could only imagine that the San Antonio Spurs were really high on that list. I don't think they're there these days.
No, I mean they had the, like, what was it, the best run in professional sports before the Pats, and there's
another team too, the Patriots,
and now the Penguins. But I digress.
Well, yeah, Tony's a Penguins fan. So.
Oh, okay. All right. I don't think, I mean, the NBA and really all of professional sports are built in a way to try and curb that level of consistent dominance anyways, right? Like, the idea is to strive for parity. And so I think it's great for the history books, but bad for the, competitiveness if you do sustain that. And so the NBA is going to do whatever it can in this instance to try and level the playing field. I think it's much more of a compelling product when you do have more competition. And I'm hoping it's not sustainable. I love watching Steph play. I think the Warriors doing great is wonderful to see. But I don't know. I don't think anyone expects it to be sustainable beyond, like, even this is somewhat unexpected. And I don't think it needs to be. I like the idea of turning the page.
Well,
I like
when you're asking sustainable, are you talking about their value as a franchise, or what? How long is this team going to dominate? Sorry.
Like their competitive nature, is that?
Oh, okay. Because
no. Like, sorry, please go ahead.
No, I'm just saying you're not going to be on top forever. I don't think the San Antonio Spurs were ever one of the more valuable franchises from a value standpoint, what they were worth. But their business model is probably good enough that could keep them up there. I mean, right? They've probably built a nice following for themselves, but of course, all good things come to an end. They're not going to dominate forever.
I'm curious. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Randy, but I'm curious in terms of, like, the value of the franchise. How much of that change? You talk about the new arena, right? When you go from Oakland to
San Francisco,
right? Yeah, like, that's geographically, there's not much difference, but as far as, like, value goes,
absolutely,
it's significant. So
it's a different world, right? Completely different world.
Yeah. And I mean, you said that some things, don't last forever. Well, ask Leaf fans, because there's been a long streak of nothing happening for the last 50 plus years. But speaking of Steph himself, where does he rank in terms of the grand scheme of things? When I hear of the best in league history, you think of Jordan, you think of Kareem, you think of obviously LeBron James.
Yeah.
Is Steph Curry, is he forgotten, or are people just waiting to see what he could still accomplish? Because I mean, LeBron James, although his sunset is a lot sooner, I think, than Steph, uh, to me, Steph Curry has just blown so many people away.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's so true that he definitely doesn't get nearly the amount of acclaim as a LeBron, a Jordan or Kareem, whatever. I think it's even in, like, I don't know, in the modern day game, right? Is Steph even talked about that much? Admittedly, like my nose isn't in those conversations as closely as it was,
Mhm.
so I don't know. But I feel like he doesn't get the credit that he deserves, right? From a stylistic standpoint and changing the game, I think there's probably a little bit more conversation around Steph in that regard. But from a success standpoint, all the chips and what he has been able to do with that team, I don't think there's nearly enough love shown for Steph.
Tony,
Is it people? Is it because people just look at him as a shooter and nothing else? Maybe.
I'm thinking about that because you take a look at a guy like Jordan, you take a look at a guy like Julius Erving. How many times do we see Julius Erving's windmill dunk, all of what everything that Jordan can do in the air. However, Steph Curry created the conversation of moving the 3-point line back. He's the greatest 3-point shooter in NBA history. And it's just getting to the point where now people are taking shots at a consistent basis at the logo of the court. So how can he not be a part of that conversation? Like, as the last time I checked, a 3-point shot is worth more than a dunk.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he has literally changed the game. I think we're seeing more and more players, push their shots back. I think as anyone who's watching the Raptors games, sees Van Vliet taking shots from 4 feet out, right? And that's because you can, and you can because you practice that, and you practice that because you see Steph doing that years ago. And he normalized what would have been, previously just the crazy shots that you do in the playground when you're goofing off with your friends. You don't take those shots in a game, right? But when you see Steph just go to town, like catching fire, NBA Jam style, torching nets from infinite distance, right? Like, you want to replicate that. And when you've got a generation of talent thinking that that is attainable, they're going to just keep jacking up those shots. And then as they grow older and evolve and become professionals, those shots become normalized. And you have to have that conversation about pulling back the 3-point line. And, Steph he's definitely at the forefront of that. He is a remarkable human being.
Okay. Does that make the game better if a bunch of people are trying to do what only Steph can do, though? Does it not cheapen the game a bit? It's just me asking a question because I don't watch basketball as much as I once did, and I think that's the argument I hear sometimes about. Yes, he's phenomenal, he's great, but the fact, like, to your point, Zach, the fact that you have a bunch of these kids who want to duplicate that and can't, have we become too reliant on the 3-pointer as part of the game?
I guess I think that's a matter of preference, right? Like, if you respect the skill in a shot, then yeah, I think if you're still, crafting up plays to make, smart shots, however deep they are, I think that's, wildly entertaining. I wouldn't call it cheapening it. I think, when you see players maybe abusing the 3-point shot, and yes, it's definitely less entertaining when you see a team hucking them from deep and they're connecting on, like, 20%. You want to see a little bit more variance in the approach. But I think as long as, it's done in a respectful way, as long as you're making those shots, as long as you can kind of see the skill in it, where it's sort of taken away the notion of luck, then yeah, I mean, it's all part of the game.
To me personally, I am of the opinion that a power forward or a center
I knew you were
better
going to bring
hit that. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought you were going to go the other way. I
No.
thought you were bringing the Eric Montross back. You want
Oh.
the big clunky 7-footers to jam up the paint.
Well, honestly, I think that there is something to that, Zach. I really do, because when I saw Siakam try to jack up threes, especially while he was in Tampa, when Gasol's last days as a Raptor, he was always hanging out at the 3-point line. And how many 3-point shooters do you actually need? I mean, I guess for what it is, yeah, it's going to be hard to block a Kevin Durant when he's at the 3-point line. But when they don't make it, who's grabbing that glass? So I think that there still is value in a Jonas Valanciunas, for example, a banger, just because somebody needs to get those boards, because you're only going to make, you're probably going to be missing 6 of your 10 shots from 3 if you're lucky.
I want to bring up the Jonas stats, because I feel like he chucks as well.
And he does. Yeah, I know that especially his last days in Toronto, he was starting to get a feel for it. I don't believe Rudy Gobert is much of a 3-point shot. But yeah, for a guy like Ben Simmons, for example, here's a guy who could handle the ball. He has a great defensive presence. And he's getting ripped for not having a 3-point game. And it's like, how many more things does a guy have to do? And
yeah, I think you're right. But the key is how much can you stretch, right? Because the alternative is you are kind of clogging up space in the middle, and the point is you spread it out. It's the pace and space game of today, and you need to have a shot, whether it's you're a 3-point threat or just a concern if you leave open. I think are two different things. I think it's important in today's game that everyone can shoot, let alone from distance. But I don't think you need to be on the verge of vying for a spot in the 3-point contest as a big man.
Yeah, certainly. So from beyond the Warriors and the value of the 3-point shot in the game, guys, I'd really love to talk about this current Raptors team. And it was quite an exciting year for the team of the North, as they surprised a lot of people. I, for one, thought that they were going to make the play-in tournament. I did not think that they were going to finish where they did, which was in 5th in the Eastern Conference. Well, Zach, I mean, you had spent a lot of time along the sidelines there as a reporter in your reporter days. And, in terms of, well, actually, I'd love to get your thoughts first. You saw some really lean years as a Raptors reporter. Yeah, it was during the stretch where Toronto did not win a playoff series. And here they are after not only a few playoff wins, but that golden trophy at the end of the rainbow.
Put it into context for those who happen to not follow my AM radio career a decade ago. So I was covering the team basically through the Bosch Bargnani years, Colangelo, consistent mediocrity. Tony, you were talking about Jalen Rose, right? Kind of those days, the ins and outs, the lack of consistency. Obviously, the onset of DeMar. But I left right before Lowry came aboard, and so that's obviously when the success started to come.
So you were the reason why they didn't make it, right?
I mean, honestly, I thought about it. I grew up and playing sports. I think a lot of people growing up playing sports have that kind of superstitious bone in them, and I felt a something inside me that made me feel somewhat responsible. What was the question? I remember the
No,
you got the Raptors when they were bad, and then my brain kind of shut off.
well, actually, Zach, truthfully, you were one of the very few people that I got to know of very few friends who actually was basketball first, and well, dare I say, maybe basketball only. I know that you all obviously have an appreciation
Accurate.
for,
Yeah.
an appreciation for all sports, but yeah, you were all about ball, and for you to experience, covering the Raptors the way that you did, like my experiences covering not only the Raptors but the Leafs and the Blue Jays as an intern. They were some of the greatest memories that I have. Period. And but you got to experience so much more, and then you obviously moved away from radio. And here's this love that you have for this franchise, and they made it to the top. I, for one, didn't think it was possible. Love to know what your thoughts
Good.
were.
Yeah. It was wild. I mean, honestly, like first off, yeah, 100%. I was so fortunate to get to cover this team for like 7 years. I talk to my kids about it all the time. I just took my daughter to her first game this season. It was actually the game where the speaker caught fire, and so we were only there for one
Oh
and a half
no.
quarters. But it was, it's amazing to be able to kind of share some of those stories and have the access and insight, especially as a fan. I mean, in those days when the Raptors were the epitome of not good, I got to sit courtside and watch these guys like every other night at home, and it was unbelievable. As kind of messy as the product was, it was just so much fun. And to get to talk to these players again, it was very bizarre because you obviously have to be super professional and whatnot. But as like the fan inside me, I was just like, holy shit, this is fucking amazing, like all the time. And it was wild. And obviously, when it came to the title, we were in LA. I say we, I was, at a gaming convention with a whole bunch of people from our studio. We had just announced this game called Watch Dogs Legion. We had a
Oh,
great
nice.
E3. That was what was going on in LA. And obviously, it's the Raptors and Warriors. And I was watching at a restaurant. It was game 6. No, it would have been game 5, I guess. Me and a guy who started on the same day as me at Ubisoft Toronto, who also used to work on Raptors.com, and he would sit courtside with me covering this horrible
No
basketball team. And here
kidding.
we are, both working for an entirely different company in a completely different industry, watching the Raptors in the NBA Finals. And both of us were just kind of like in awe of what it was that we were watching, never thinking that this was even possible. I remember how many shows I would host, and people would be so upset that the Raptors weren't in like the Eastern Conference Finals, and if you can't make it in the second round. And I would always have the same sort of mindset, and maybe it was just because I was so attuned to mediocrity and effectively failure, where I'd always just say, like, look, there can only be one champion. What are the chances that it's going to be your team? It's 1 in 30, but then it's further stacked against you if you're not in a market that is, appealing, and you can't get the free agents. And really, they didn't have like the first class organization chops to do that quality scouting. All the draft picks were hit and miss and stuff. But now you see where they're at under Masai, and the credibility they've got and the smarts that they've got, and just how well tuned this organization is. To me, you talk about, you were thinking play-in at best this season. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think I flipped entirely because now I'm full-blown optimist, and I definitely envisioned, a pretty high seed, not necessarily home court, but I was just kind of looking at the last year in Tampa. The Raptors are the only team that had to play every game on the road effectively.
Yeah.
This was still very close to being the team that, had great success up until the bubble. And so I'm like, yeah, no, this team can do it. And I expected a little bit more from, our boy Flynn, Malachi Flynn. I kind of assumed that would be on a trajectory. Did not expect Scotty Barnes to be as great as Scotty was. I obviously, we all saw flashes of Precious at the start of the season. We're like, wow, that
Sure.
guy, like the mobility, everything, like it's there. The hands weren't quite there, and he couldn't really finish. But then he just kind of like put it together in the last stretch of the season, I'm all in on this team. I thought this was one of the more entertaining teams, Raptors teams, that I've ever watched. And obviously it was very challenging as far as like health and, people coming in and out of the lineup, all the, changeable pieces, but I'm super stoked about watching this team going forward.
And you touched on the fact that it wasn't a desirable place to play, and what kind of credibility this was as a franchise. Tony, you are of course a big soccer fan. You're a Toronto FC season seat holder. You and I have lifted a glass many times at BMO Field, and there was of course the president CEO was Tim Leiweke, who brought in Masai Ujiri. And how much do you think he was only here, give or take 18 months, if that?
Yeah, it was a year and a half or something.
Yeah. How much do you think he is still responsible for not only the Raptors' success, but even Toronto FC? They brought in Lorenzo Insigne, and
I think he was also responsible for Shanahan.
Shanahan.
Again, I know.
Yeah, no, sure. I mean, name it. Tony.
I mean, even though the Leafs have had their struggles in the playoffs, that franchise is a hell of a lot more stable now than it was prior to his arrival. I think he's had a huge impact on all three clubs, and I think the fact that Masai Ujiri has chosen to stay is a huge boost for the franchise. I'm just as optimistic as Zack was, but going into the season, I didn't give them much of a chance. I mean, you say play, and I thought they would take a step back this year. So I was thoroughly surprised the way the season turned out. One question I have for you, both of you, what is OG Anunoby at this stage in his career? I want to like him. I really do. I really want to like him, but he lets me down a lot. So explain to me what he is.
Which portion of him lets you down?
I just don't. Doesn't it feel like he should give you more every game? Like it just feels like he leaves a little bit left to be desired. I want more from him. Am I wrong? It feels like he lets me down sometimes. Just not complete games consistently, right? And I understand he has issues as well. But man, when that guy's on, he's such a fun player to watch, but it doesn't seem like it's consistent.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely correct. And I don't know if people think of this seriously, but you think of his demeanor, you think of his size and so on. I mean, are people thinking his quiet, peculiar demeanor is similar to Kawhi Leonard? Are they expecting him to be that kind of guy? I really hope not. But when he is able to hit from the outside, when he's able to collect boards and so on, and really have that kind of defensive presence, I think that there is a reason why Toronto signed him for 4 years. But I completely hear what you're saying, is that sometimes his play on the court is as quiet as him, period. So
when you want him to be as loud as his scarves, right? Like,
oh yeah, for sure. But you have to think that Zack, I mean, that he is starting very, very slowly now. During the championship season, he had an appendicitis. He had some personal issues going on as well. But the cohesion he obviously had with Serge Ibaka. You mentioned this wild scarves and the wild fashion sense that Serge brought. That he is starting to come out of his shell a little bit, but it's a really, really slow process.
Yeah, we got Dan jumping in right now. I don't know if Dan can jump right into the deep end of the pool talking about OG.
So Dan Leggieri is joining us. He is the 1/3 of the radio broadcasting excellence that was Seneca's art radio program in 2004. And Dano is just coming back from coaching his son's baseball game. Dano, thank you so much for hopping on.
What happened in the game? First question. What?
Well, it was a dominant performance, and I'll have you know that one of our 7-year-olds, Preston, hit a grand slam today. It was a big event, and we came away with a 10-7 win.
Now, did he actually muscle one out of the infield? Like define like the kind of power that young Preston has?
Truthfully, he the way the 7-year-olds play, they sort of all line up along the infield line. So you have like 2 third basemen, 2 shortstops, all that stuff. There's maybe 1 rover in the outfield, but he hit it over everybody's head. Didn't land on the grass, but it landed. Went over everybody's head and rolled into the outfield with enough time for him to round the bases and bring us home a win. It was great.
Right
on. Shout out to Preston.
Yeah, what's up?
Awesome.
So, no, Dano, thank you so much for hopping on. We are talking Raptors now, and Tony brought up the question of OG Anunoby, and I don't know how much you want to, I guess in terms of the future. I actually did see something on social media about him potentially being rumored to be.
Don't bring that up.
And Dano missed the beginning of us of the legitimacy of news these days, but
it was on social media.
Well, yeah, I know, but I mean, like, I was creating a dialogue.
I get the sense that Zack is a big OG fan.
I do like OG, and I like OG a lot. I can obviously appreciate your I think your frustration. I think we all feel that. I think it's more like role definition than skill or anything like that. I think the Raptors really need to find out what they want from OG on a consistent basis, because some nights they're clearly going to him more than others. Some nights he is willing to shoot with a lot more assertiveness, and then other nights he's just comfortable kind of playing back seat. So I think it's really probably some stern conversations and really nailing down, okay, what does OG look like next to Pascal Siakam night in and night out? What does that look like on the offensive end? What does it look like when they're on the defensive side, right? Like, I haven't spoken to too many people that just straight up don't like OG. I think I don't dislike him either. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Like, I want to see him do well because you can see it. He's good. You talk about his demeanor. I like his demeanor. I like his calmness on the court. He's the coolest guy on the Raptors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I like that. But I just don't know what he is still. It's weird. Like, he's been around for a while, right?
I think that, a part of that is certainly like the 30 missed games every year, whatever it is. I think that really hurts as far as cohesion. That's, more than a third of the season. And health has always been an issue with him. But, we have definitely seen in stretches on the offensive side, certainly what he's capable of doing. And I think, again, not to suggest that everyone's development path is linear, but I think we've seen, pretty solid improvement from him every year.
Well, I mean, Dano, I'd love to get your thoughts on where you think a guy like OG Anunoby fits for the future. I mean, to me, do you need a guy like OG Anunoby when you have a guy like Gary Trent Jr. On the team already? There definitely seems to be a need for the center position. What do you think, Dano, in terms of OG?
I don't know that anybody's untouchable on this Raptors team. There's definitely a lot to like about OG's game and what he brings and the type of character that I think Masai likes, and forgive me if this has all been discussed already, but I think he fits well into the Raptors culture more than he might fit into their needs on the court. Even Pascal, Van Vliet, all of them. I think at this point, I don't know that anybody is your franchise guy to build around and a guy that needs to stick around through whatever kind of rebuild that they're going to attempt, and rebuild's maybe not even the right word. I don't know that they're, anywhere near tank mode. They've got some solid pieces, and they're obviously still a competitive team. And OG's part of that. He's a hardworking guy who can, he can give you serviceable minutes, who can, represent the city well, and then be an ambassador, which seems to be important to MLSE. So, but at the same time, I don't know that anybody would shed a tear if you were to be moved out. So,
I'd probably
make of that what you will.
I think Zack would.
I'd shed
and I'm pretty sure the rookie of the year isn't going anywhere either, Dan.
No,
I don't think. Yeah, he's probably untouchable right now.
Yeah, I know. Like in terms of a franchise guy, like I know that Scotty Barnes has had the best season of a rookie this past season, winning rookie of the year. A lot of players, a lot of analysts, a lot of former players just marvel at his play and everything else. I mean, like he has the personality to fit, especially in this town. I don't know if we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but could Scotty Barnes be that guy?
I don't think so, truthfully.
You don't think so, Dan?
Well, based on
No.
Okay, so hang on. So I think we can probably all agree that Kyle Lowry is the greatest Raptor of all time.
Oh no.
That's
What?
well, we had this conversation on a previous episode, and
Yeah.
I picked Kyle Lowry as well.
You do pick Lowry? Dan,
I did, yeah.
what about you? What did you
I don't remember what I did. I smoke a lot of pot sometimes. I don't know. I don't remember what I chose, but he's up there. That's for sure. But I don't want to derail the conversation. But he's up there.
Well,
No,
I think
to me-
you need to establish who the greatest Raptor of all time is to determine whether Scotty Barnes has the potential of dethroning them. Do you not?
Well, yeah, sure. And at the top of the pyramid, Zack, and it kills me to say this, it's Vince Carter.
Oh.
It is Vince Carter because and as we were having the discussion, Tony, Dan, and myself, as well as Frank DeFrenza, people who had Raptors tickets, I don't think went to Scotiabank, Air Canada Center to see Kyle Lowry play. I think that between Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, fans flocked to DeMar a lot more. And I think that Kyle Lowry, without a doubt, is the most accomplished, has accomplished the most anybody had. But Vince Carter, maybe my thought process is skewed because he was the first one to do it. But I mean, look at today, so many years after that. I mean, he left the Raptors in 2004. How many times do we see kids today wearing a Vince Carter Raptors jersey? We're never going to see that throwback sort of jersey, like in terms of a Kyle Lowry jersey. I mean, who within Toronto is going to? I mean, that's one of the many examples that I could.
I don't know. I see a lot of Kyle Lowry jerseys.
I see a lot of Kyle. I got it
outside of Toronto.
I see them in Cuba all the time.
Are they Canadians?
How often are you in Cuba?
Well, they've given them to the Cubans.
So that means you must see. That means you must see Buffalo Bills Super Bowl champion T-shirts as well. Tony, that was not a dig. I mean, Tony is also a Bills fan as well.
That's okay. That's okay, right? It's the last time I'm on this show.
Love you, but Zack, I mean, where do you think? What do you think about my thought process here?
I mean, first off, I understand the logic. I think as someone who grew up in the Vince era, I hold VC on a super high level as well. But I think, you have to establish success as a significant criteria in terms of determining who the greatest Raptor of all time is. And, you add in the longevity, the impact, the culture, how much Kyle was responsible for all of that. And I think he has to be at the top of the list. And to be honest, I think the only thing that you can kind of really say when it comes to Vince being at the top is, an argument that is, something that is all going to be subjective, but you have to kind of base it on, if it weren't for Vince, the Raptors wouldn't exist in Toronto anymore. I could get behind that just because of the popularity, right? But success of Kyle, again, the way that he has impacted this franchise, I think you have to put him at the very top. But I think if we're, trying to get to the next piece of the conversation, which is where does Scotty Barnes fit? I think it has to be a possibility, right? I put a significant amount of stock in the longevity of Kyle, mixed with that success. If Scotty Barnes sticks around for 9 years, a decade, I think you're very likely looking at someone who is going to be statistically superior in potentially every aspect. From a culture standpoint, I think we've seen the Scotty Barnes effect already on the court, when he's on the bench, whatever it means. The guy is vibrant. He is ultra violent, right? Like this guy's
he's an infectious. He looks like an infectious. Just I see it,
right?
Yeah, I fell in love with him. I fell in love with him as he was drafted.
Yeah.
Oh, it was just gold.
Yeah.
But I think also, and maybe it's because Vince had such a low threshold to cross, because there wasn't any sort of footprint in terms of NBA basketball in Canada. But you see all the players today who have become basketball players in this country, and they all say it's because of Vince. I wonder if Kyle Lowry could inspire basketball players of tomorrow. I wonder, honestly, if Kawhi Leonard could inspire as many as Kyle Lowry did. I really do. I do think that. I mean, because, and as we were talking on that previous episode, is that Kyle Lowry definitely does fit the love of a Toronto sports fan, like those gritty, put your body out there kind of that hockey sort of mentality. But Tony brought up the point as well during that very episode. Kyle Lowry was the captain of the Raptors 100%, but Kawhi Leonard was the reason why the Raptors won that championship.
I don't know if there's one reason. I mean, obviously he had a historic run, and the Raptors would not have won the title without him. But you look at what Pascal did during that stretch as well. Like those two were incredible. But you look at that, that last game, how many of the first points did Lowry score? Right? Like he set the tone when he kicked off that game. You knew, well, maybe you didn't know that they were going to win because the Raptors were kind of expect the worst. But he gives you that confidence. And we saw even with the Heat most recently what happens when you've got Kyle who isn't at his best, and the Raptors had Kyle at his best, especially in this last stretch of his career, and how much he mentored the youth. But I do want to, I would like to go back to that Vince point just one more time. And
please,
you talk about,
of course,
that next generation of Canadian talent, similar to what we were talking about with Steph earlier on, right? When you do something that is so different from the rest of the field, Vince's dunks were beyond electric, right? Like how many of you have the Freddie Weiss dunk just like etched in your brain? You can visualize everything from the turnaround, almost punching Garnett afterwards. Like that is in your brain forever, right? I think
the counter to that though, Zach, of course, is that he was not wearing a Raptor jersey when he did that.
Sure, but it's Vince, right? And that's what I'm saying. It's like it's the imagery you've got. It's how much he changed the game. It's how much he made the impossible look like it was something that could be potentially attainable. All of a sudden, people are trying dunks with their elbow because they saw this guy do it and it looked crazy. And they're like, you know what? I want to try that. And that's how it's not that dunk in particular, but when you've got someone who is, that prevalent on highlight reels everywhere, and he's wearing your jersey, no doubt you've got a Corey Joseph and a Tristan Thompson and whoever else may be, this current crop, grew up watching the Raptors because of Vince. I get that. I think, there's a transcendence there, but I still don't think that makes him the greatest Raptor. I think that makes him the most entertaining Raptor.
Perhaps. Dan, do you by chance have a thought as you thought about it more? Do you lean one way to or another in terms of who might be the greatest Raptor? You don't. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, it's cool. I think as well though. Obviously, when Vince ended his time in Toronto, it was messy. And that
They were
how
terrible
much
for
does,
years because of it.
sure. And how much does that play a factor? And I mean, I definitely think that Raptor fans may have a different opinion of basketball fans in this country. I think that, you know, when you think of a basketball fan in Alberta or Nova Scotia, as I hack a lung here, maybe they have a different opinion of Vince as opposed to Raptor fans. Dano, what do you think?
It is tough to say. This is way more subjective, than you may have a conversation with the Maple Leafs for sure, just because of their longevity. And you can point to, players who've, played for a long time and compare their stats. The Raptors don't have the luxury of that, just length of being a team. And then there's been a lot of fair points made across the table, and this conversation becomes subjective because some of you are talking about, Vince is the greatest because of the impact that he had on the city and on the NBA as a whole when he was a Raptor. The argument for Kyle is that, he, through his truculence and tenacity, brought the city a championship with the help of a superstar world-class athlete in Kawhi, who you can make an argument that he's the greatest Raptor because of what he did. And if sports is about championships, he did everything that he could in that year when he was, even not even playing the full year, because he invented load management when he was in Toronto. So, Damon Stoudemire had an incredible impact on this team. And Tracy McGrady and Chris Bosh, all these guys had phenomenal runs in Toronto and meant so much to the franchise in building the fan base to where it is now, arguably paving the way for a guy like Kyle to come in and cement his place as one of the greats, because he plays the way that Torontonians like their sports people to play. We all love, I don't want to, we all love Darcy Tucker and Ty Domi and these guys because they left it all on. Kyle was the same way. Whether or not he was the greatest player, you can make an argument that he was the one who, to Tony's point, he might have the greatest longevity just because of the time that he arrived, the success that the team had when he was here, and the way that he left. He left the hero. Where we're talking about potentially erecting statues of Kyle Lowry and some sort of Raptor rope. So, honestly, I don't have an opinion firmly in any one camp, because I think it's subjective. And, over time, maybe another 20, 30 years, we might be able to look back and say objectively that Kyle was or wasn't, or Vince was or wasn't the greatest Raptor. But I don't know that you can really answer that
or Scotty Barnes.
Or Scotty Barnes. You never know.
Or potentially Scotty Barnes. You never know. You never know. So that being said, guys, and obviously, pretty much know the main pieces that are going to be a part of the Raptors team for the 22-23 season. I guess it's anybody's guess if one of those pieces between Siakam or Van Vliet, will Anunoby stick around? Gary Trent Jr., he's signed until the 24 season. But Shaquille O'Neal made an interesting comment, and that the Raptors are in no man's land, according to him, that they don't have that superstar, if you will, that could lead the team over to the top. Dano, do you agree with Shaq?
Yeah, I think I alluded to it earlier, where when I said nobody's, untouchable, and and I agreed to some extent where Scotty Barnes might be a guy that you might put your foot down and say absolutely no move, but I don't know that we're in that position. I don't know that any solid return can't push anybody on the current roster out right now, because there isn't that. At least Barnes hasn't. He might be, but then you're playing with futures. But if you look at this roster objectively now and say, is there one person that we would be foolish, today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, to move? I don't know. And again, Barnes, he would solicit a ransom, of really good prospects or current players. in return, and he might, again, like we said, he might turn into the greatest Raptor. But Jack's right. Today, I don't know that there's, I don't know that there is that one guy, but not a lot of teams have that one guy either.
That's right.
I remember, when Indiana was really good, top in the charts, they never really had their star either. They were a team, much like the Raptors were built to be a team. They weren't, the Celtics with Durant and Pierce and Ray Allen. They weren't the Cavaliers with LeBron and Love and Kyrie. They weren't this sort of three-headed monster, this super team that either revolved around one, two, or three superstars. And they're being built the same way now. So yes, he's right in a sense, but who the hell am I?
I'd like
if there's. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'll make it quick because you speak on basketball better than the both of us.
No, come on now, Tony. That's come on.
We've seen Masai do it already. If there is a deal to be made that makes sense, where he's going to add that guy that Shaq's talking about, he's going to do it, right? And that's it. I mean, yeah, we don't have that superstar, but not a lot of teams do, right? But if that guy becomes available like Kawhi did, they will exhaust everything they possibly can to try and make that move happen, right?
Can I just jump on here, Tony? And I think you're sort of driving it to it where, I don't know that Kawhi's become available all that often. That's felt like a one in a generation, timing. The Leafs find themselves in that position now where they keep talking about flipping Willie for the Kawhi. But where are you going to get a top three player in the league who's available to come to your team? That's a luxury that 31 teams don't have most years. So it seems like we'd be putting Masai and the Raptors in a position to fail regardless of what they do if we demand that they go find the next Kawhi, because it's just not going to happen.
Well, I mean, are they going out to find it? Things always happen. You have fallouts with your organizations, just like it happened with Kawhi, right? And the guy might become available, and you might just happen to have the guys we're looking for to make this deal happen, plus 86 first round picks until 2035. But what say you, Zach?
I think I have a tough time agreeing with Shaq in most instances, and I think the 2 points that he's largely made that Randy brings up are kind of mutually exclusive, right? Being in no man's land and not having like that superstar are two different things. I think no man's land suggests that they would be in a place where they are not competitive, but they're also not bad enough to get a good draft pick, right? I would suggest that this Raptors team is completely competitive, and you take the Sixers to 7, even if many, including Shaq, who initially said that they were going to get swept out, and then he flips in the same conversation, says the Raptors are going to take it, and all of a sudden it's a sweep comment that comes out. I think that's a bit of a wash. The Raptors had an all-star. They had Pascal Siakam, who was third team All-NBA, and 2 years prior was second team All-NBA. I think he's the closest you've got to a superstar, and I think that is okay. The way the Raptors are built right now, and granted they're still skewing on the younger side, they have the group that gives any team a headache, right? And because of that, you have a chance in pretty much any series. So, as I mentioned a little bit earlier on before Dan jumped on, like I'm optimistic about this team because I think, they are built to have success and find more of it. But I also agree with Dan and suggest, and yourself as well, Tony, if the right deal comes along, I do trust that, Masai is the one who is going to make it and improve this team. I think, with the product they have on the floor, which is, not only interesting, but competitive, and the front office that has shown it's got the chops to build winners and, build teams with talent that compete successfully and consistently. I think the Raptors are way beyond no man's land. And I think that kind of goes back to another one of our earlier comments when we talk about just, frankly, sensationalist bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're saying things to get a rise. We know that the Raptors fan base is one that is quite rabid, especially online. So you're going to generate that conversation. But I think it's frankly drivel, and I don't think I don't think Shaq really watches much Raptors basketball. And I don't blame him because he's got, American networks to feed, and American networks don't really care about the Raptors as much either.
Well, yeah, I guess the bottom line, like in most things, it's about money. And unfortunately, those who run the FCC don't really think that us Canadians matter much, do they?
Where are the Raptors on your valued franchises list, Tony? Do you have that handy still?
Ooh, well, I have to click on to get more.
Yeah, no, by all means, take your time. No,
I didn't go that far down.
Say it again.
I said I didn't go that far down.
I'm mostly being facetious, but right, like I think the Raptors' value here to us, to Canada, is very different from that of their value stateside, right? That's obviously clear. No matter how much they win, it's just not, it's not an American team.
But I don't think that really matters, though, because in the end, basketball fans want to see great basketball. And it blows my mind that during Christmas, they always have to have the Knicks game on, that the Knicks playing on Christmas. For in a football sense, the Detroit Lions always has to play on Thanksgiving. Who is going to watch the Detroit Lions? With due respect to my guy, Patrick Rush, who is from Detroit and on the Colorcast app, Detroit has been awful forever. And the Raptors, they obviously had a following when they were in the finals. A lot of them were hoping that the Raptors were going to take it past the Warriors in 19. And it seems that you have a marketable guy like Scotty Barnes who could attract a lot of attention, just like how Vince did in 2001. So I don't think, yeah, sure. I would put a competitive Raptors squad over a Utah Jazz, for example. Like, in terms of national appeal, and Utah always gets.
But you see, like, Spider-Man's dunks, right? Like it's going to be the highlights, and the Raptors aren't serving up those highlights, right? Like I would say it's probably the equivalent to, former Spurs ball fundamentals, playing the game right, making some good plays, and again, shooting threes. Again, it's a different game as far as highlights go. But when you've got a Donovan Mitchell who's throwing down these huge jams from the the free throw line, you're going to get that extra airtime on your Sports Center pack.
I do want to add the fact that Donovan Mitchell did rock a Vince jersey during that slam dunk competition, which I'm sure you remember.
Not a Kyle Lowry jersey?
No, it wasn't a Kyle Lowry jersey. No, but Tony, any luck with where the Raptors sit?
I'm trying, man. Like 20, I got the 2020. I got the 2021 stats for some reason, even though I put 2022 and they're fourth from the bottom.
Fourth from the bottom, really? Who?
Yeah.
Not in all of. No.
NBA, just NBA.
Who was after them? Who was?
I'm trying to. I left that list because I'm trying desperately to find a 2022 one.
Well, it's all good. You know what we could do as Tony, maybe hopefully you could find that article before we sign off here. But to
10th place.
There you go.
10th spot. $2.48 billion.
And who's ninth? Who's 11th?
Ninth is Dallas Mavericks, and 11th are the 76ers.
Interesting. And 76ers especially. That's a storied franchise, of course. With a Joel Embiid, who knows what's going to happen, especially with Harden being a disaster that he was. So that being said, we're getting close to the end of the show, and like we do here on What's Up the Sports podcast, we'll tie a bow on it with our rapid fire segment known as Big Deal, No Big Deal. So Zach, Tony, and Dan know the drill. I am going to pose a statement scenario, a storyline to them, to you as well, and you're going to tell me, and if others, please feel free to chime in if it's a big deal or no big deal. So full disclosure, guys, I am not a music guy at all. I could rip it on the dance floor, but I don't know anything about any musical act. Dan, I see that you disagree with that, but whatever. But J. Cole, hip hop star, has signed with the Scarborough Shooting Stars of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. He is 37 years old, and in the first couple of games of his career, he has played to some pretty full arenas. Of course, they're not as big as, say, Scotiabank Arena. But Tony, J. Cole signing with the Shooting Stars of Scarborough, is that a big deal or no big deal?
Like you, Randy, I had no clue who J. Cole was. So the only big deal about it is that he signed with Scarborough. Born and raised Scarborough. So that's the only reason why it's a big deal. Scarborough.
Something tells me that Zack and Dan have a lot more of a musical sense than the two of us. Do you guys know anything about J. Cole?
Yeah, you guys sound like dinosaurs right now. He's
I feel
really,
like
really good. You should check him out.
Absolutely. J. Cole was the big soundtrack for me when I was serving on a jury for a double hitman murder case, and so I always kind of associate the two.
Holy crap.
Yeah, it was wild. That was right before I made my transition out of the fan. Actually, it's a big story. I'll tell you about it.
I'd love to hear that. But yeah, Daniel, you were saying?
Oh, I don't know that it's such a large deal. I never heard of the Scarborough team before. What was it, the Shooting Stars?
But you have now.
They're an expansion. They're an expansion
it's a big
team.
deal. It's a big deal from that standpoint, where I guess it put them on the map, literally, figuratively. J. Cole is an accomplished musician, so it means something. So yeah, I'll go big deal.
Well, I'm going to listen to Wet Dreams as I go to sleep tonight by J. Cole.
Okay, now. Okay.
I don't. God, I hope that's the name of one of his tracks.
It is. It is. Dreams with a Z.
Thank you. That would help for when I do the YouTube search. So, I, for one, in terms of basketball, really love the, I guess, insistence of personality a lot more, especially when it comes to a sport like hockey, that the players, as well as, former players, do put themselves out there. And however, Udonis Haslem had some criticism for Draymond Green after before the Heat Celtics series concluded. Heat saying that he'd rather play the Celtics, and Udonis Haslem said that Draymond Green broke the code, whatever that means.
Well, he said the Celtics were going to win.
Excuse me. That's what. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So Green said that Celtics were going to win. Udonis was kind of miffed. Dan, I mean, is that a big deal or no big deal?
No big deal. This whole unwritten code about sports is silly at best. So it really is no big deal. It's just a bunch of it's ego, it's theater, it's all part of it, and it's what the NBA, it's what people love about it, that it's sort of character driven of that sense, or personality driven, I should say, because these are real people, and that's what's great about the NBA. So the cheap shots or the chirping, it's fun to watch, but at the end of the day, it's no big deal.
I think the reason why I brought it up, though, guys, is because if this was hockey, it would be a massive deal. I don't know. I love hockey. The Leafs were one of my favorite teams, in my formative years, going to Maple Leaf Gardens. I could still remember it to this day, but mother of God, these people have no personality whatsoever. And I was a little disappointed too, when Udonis Haslem called him out, Draymond out, for something that seemed to be so trivial.
I mean, look, Udonis Haslem has been playing in the NBA for 72 years. If anyone knows about the code, it's him, right? I don't think it's a big deal, but I'm sure there's some validity to what he's talking about.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, Udonis definitely can run the post a hell of a lot better than a guy like me. So finally, Jason Tatum and Steph Curry are the first to win a conference MVP. Jason Tatum wins the Larry Bird Eastern Conference MVP trophy. Steph Curry did the same thing for the Western Conference, which was named after Magic Johnson. Zack, a conference championship trophy and an MVP being awarded for the conference finals. Is that a big deal or no big deal?
I don't think it's a big deal yet. I think it will be when it becomes part of history, but there's nothing to compare it to. And, I think in other scenarios, we'd see like playoff MVPs and then finals MVPs. But I don't, this doesn't really do much for me, but it's great for them as individuals, more trophies.
Yeah,
Randy, who won the ALCS MVP or not ALCS? Yeah, ALCS won the ALCS MVP last year.
Tell me,
ask me
who won.
That's the point. Nobody cares. That's the thing. The finals MVP is Conn Smythe. It's this is it's like Zack said. It's great for them. They had great series, led their team to the finals, but nobody's going to remember this 2 or 3 years from now.
Jesus, I can't even remember who made the World Series. Like, I know Atlanta won it. Who the hell did they play? Houston?
They played Houston, yeah.
It's good for trivia, though, right?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Dan. Yeah. I do think it's an acquired taste, though, because, we can remember Robbie Alomar winning league MVP and, well, I guess Borders winning the World Series MVP in 92, especially. Off the top of my head, who won the 93 World Series MVP?
Paul Molitor.
Paul Molitor. Thank you. Wow. Okay. Well, I guess when it's 30 years ago, shoot. I mean, I can only know so much, but
you're the only one who didn't remember. So I don't know if time is the issue here.
Well, okay. So I guess my job is on the line then as host of this podcast. But
you can still grab the bus.
Guys, it's always great to talk sports in any capacity. And, Tony and Dan, I mean, we go back 20 years and Zack, I guess we've gone back the same way. Honestly, it's just a real treat that we could get together and have a chat. Actually, Zack, I do have to give you a shout out because you were instrumental in, lo and behold, in my marriage. So quick story, guys. Zack met my now wife once when we first started dating. It was like we were a month in, and you proposed to your wife like within 6 months or something of me proposing to mine. And you gave me the idea of taking a picture when I was going to propose. So I did get that picture done. Every time I think of it, I think of that incredible suggestion that you gave me. And if it wasn't for you, who knows where my marriage would be. So Zack.
So hang on, Randy. So Zack gave you great advice on the proposal, and I'm the one that told you not to fuck around and just call her the next day.
That's right. Yes. And I was yeah. And I did mention that to you as well. I mentioned that in a previous episode of the podcast. So
after your first date, right? After your first date, was it? That was the story? Yeah.
Yes. And so Dano, at some point I'd appreciate it if you could give me some pointers on my marriage that's running 12 years now. But honestly, guys, thank you so much for everything. I really hope you and your families are doing well. Zack, really hope that you join Tony and myself for another episode. And actually, Dan, so the last time Dan got together for an episode, very quickly, he was in the parking lot as his son was in some sort of practice. Now he went to go coach a baseball game. Then he hopped on. I couldn't thank you enough for everything that you guys have done for this podcast. If it wasn't for you guys, honestly, this podcast would be sunk. Not that I have like a Joe Rogan number kind of followership.
41 episodes.
Hey, 41. Looking forward to 42.
You got a guy from Ohio listening to you, so that's good.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
All right.
Brings. Guys, thank you so much for Tony and Antoniou, Dan Leggieri, Zack Cooper joining us. I'm Randy Courret. This is What's Up the Sports Podcast at What's Up Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we will talk to you next time.